So my name is Munro, and like so many of you in the room, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So I was age 30 when I was diagnosed, and it was in January 2016, and I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and I was told that my cancer was non-genetic despite my young age, and also that it was most likely inoperable. I went on to have chemotherapy and was fortunate enough to then be approved for surgery, and had what I'm told by my medical team to be the largest operation they've done on a stage 4 cancer patient. And after my surgery, when my surgeon was explaining everything that she'd taken out, I said, well, what bits didn't you touch? And she said, your lungs, your heart and your kidney, but we touched everything else. As many of you can relate, I'm sure, it's amazing what we can survive without. I went on to have a couple more doses of chemotherapy, and during this time I was also really lucky to get access to Avastin, which is something I campaign about because, again, as so many of you are aware, many women don't have access to Avastin just due to their postcode. 8 months after I was diagnosed, my cancer went into remission, and it stayed stable since then. So I feel very, very lucky to be here, able to talk to you today. As many of you, I'm sure, went through this, that moment when you're diagnosed, you can either succumb to your diagnosis and be miserable and just give up with life, or you can decide to think, I'm just going to get on with it and I'm going to live my life as best as I can. And that's what I chose to do. And I didn't want to hear about prognosis, although I do know my prognosis, but that's not what I wanted to focus on. I very much wanted to focus on cancer as being a gift and a wake-up call for me to start living a life that I hadn't been living before. So before I was diagnosed, I had a very high pressure job as a researcher. I commuted for 4 hours a day. I was really, really busy. I was always focused on work, and I was never enjoying life. And then suddenly cancer comes into my life, and I quit my job and I started to do everything that I'd always wanted to do. And one of the things I did was, following my surgery, I was told that because of the amount of organs that they'd removed, it would be about 6 months before I was able to even walk upstairs. And I applied to be a yoga instructor, and as you do. So 3 months after my surgery, I started training to be a yoga instructor, which was something I'd always wanted to do. And I thought, well, now's the time to do it. This year I did qualify, and I since set up my own yoga business. And I now teach children from age 3 to 12 yoga, and I also teach adults as well. And without cancer, this wouldn't have happened. I would still be in a really high stress job. I wouldn't be spending time with my family, and I wouldn't be doing these things that I'd always wanted to do. Another thing I'd always wanted to do was to write a book. I never knew what I was going to write a book about, and then fortunately ovarian cancer gave me a pretty good topic to write about, so I wrote a book about my journey. And I think a big thing that I campaign for is about recognising these hidden gifts that cancer gives us, because obviously it's awful having cancer. But if we just take a moment to look at all the things that we got because of cancer, all the friendships we made, all the moments we had, all those shared moments we have with our family where we've really savoured that time with them, which we wouldn't have done without cancer. And it's just such an important thing for me, because I think we can either be really negative, or we can just choose to be positive and think, well, this is what life's given me. How do I make the most out of it? And as I was coming here this morning, I used to do this commute every day, and I'd be miserable and I'd be grumpy about getting up early. And this morning, the sun just catching the hills, and I'd never stopped to look at that and to just savour that moment. Another thing is, I think many of you will know that when you tell someone that you have cancer and they think that your life is then miserable and it's full of tests and pain and treatment, of course that's there. But the biggest thing for me is that there's so much love in your life once you have this diagnosis, that people tell you how much they love you, or they spend time with you, and you receive all this care from friends and family. And why is it not there beforehand? And how lucky we are that we get to witness that beautiful side of life that comes with this diagnosis, and get to embrace life and enjoy every single moment. And for me, I am really grateful for my diagnosis, because although obviously it's stage 4 and my cancer is incurable, I think before my diagnosis I spent 30 years dead, and I was just working, and I'd always be like, oh yeah, I'll see you next weekend, I'm really, really busy, and not taking the time out to spend time with family or friends, or just putting work first, or just always really busy. But now it's like, well, now's the only moment I have, and now is about doing all those things that really, really matter. For me, that's what's got me through cancer, is not focusing on the negative, but really drawing out all the positives that it's given me. And for me, it's a real honour to meet you all. In Tayside, I don't really know anybody else with ovarian cancer, so it's just so nice to meet so many other people on this journey. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say, but thank you very much.